Hey everybody, it's Brooke with The Buttered Home and welcome to my messy kitchen. Today we are going to squelch all the myths that surround easy homemade fried chicken, saying that it's a little too much for you to do and it'll heat up your kitchen and make the awfulest mess. So one of the things that I like to do here at The Buttered Home is to make things that are traditionally made well. We're not going to change how it's made, we're just going to change a little bit of the method in which we do it. So fried chicken in the South, it's a real coveted thing to have, especially on Sunday lunch. So we like to do it, but we also like to do it and save some time too. Now, one of the things that a lot of people have trouble with when it comes to fried chicken is making sure that it's done all the way. So today we're going to give you a few tips and tricks and how to ensure that that chicken is crispy and yummy and that the chicken is done all the way to the bone. So we're going to start out yesterday. What I did is I used about 4 pounds of cut up chicken, and you can use the whole bird or you can do pieces like I've done. We really like legs and thighs, so I just bought a pack each of about 2 pounds of legs and 2 pounds of thighs with the bone in. You can do this with boneless, but the time is a little less. It doesn't take as much. So I like giving the full recipe with the bone-in chicken because traditionally that's how fried chicken is made. So what we've done is we have placed all these chicken pieces into a large Tupperware container yesterday, and then we poured about 3 cups of buttermilk over them and let them hang out in the fridge overnight. That buttermilk just kind of melts into the chicken, ensuring a moist, tender piece of chicken every time. The longer you can marinate it, the better, but so I would say probably at least 2 hours if you're in a hurry. So we marinated that chicken and then we drained it and put it on a platter, and then I have shaken my homemade fried chicken seasoning on both sides, and that's what you see that's coated on top of the chicken, and it's sitting here resting and coming back to room temperature here in my kitchen. I do that fairly early because you don't really want to fry cold chicken because it could cause popping and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my fried chicken seasoning. I don't even have a recipe for it because it's just not really a recipe at all. You can make as much or as little of it as you want. I like this little cheese shaker that I bought at the grocery store, and I keep it in here. And one of the ways that I keep it from like sticking together, because sometimes when you mix spices, is I just have a little wax paper square that I've fashioned an umbrella out of, and I keep it stored just like this with the little wax paper on top. That keeps moisture from getting in there and from the spices to be sticky. But now if they do stick together, you can simply put your hand over the top and just shake them, and usually they'll separate. So that's how I like to store mine. And what it is, all it is equal parts of smoked paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, and pepper. And that's all you need. And I just keep it on hand because even when I make chicken strips, I will just use this over on top of the chicken before I bread it. So we've let that sit and come to room temperature. Now I am going to show you how we fry it and finish it. So I'm going to swap to overhead now so you can see all the glory of what I'm doing. All right, we are back, and in a large high-sided Dutch oven, I have about a cup of shortening that I have slowly melted on low that I am bringing to 325 degrees. Now, if you have a candy thermometer, you can fix one of those on the side. Those are really best so that you can keep an eye on your temperature because you want it to stay pretty constant. Of course, it's very hot right now and I'm trying to readjust it. Sorry about my hands all in the way. But right now, I've just turned my heat back on, and so we're waiting for it to come back up. So I'm going to bump my heat up about midway between low and high, just to bring it up to 325 degrees. Now, a little secret, while I'm doing this, I also preheat my oven to 375 degrees because we are going to finish this chicken in there. And if you're nervous about making fried chicken, try it my way, because you can certainly make sure that it's done by finishing it in the oven, and you don't lose anything, because we're going to do an extensive browning and crisping up in here in the shortening the traditional way. So if you're reluctant about that, you don't really have to be. All right, so we've got about a cup of solid shortening that we've melted in my Dutch oven. And if you don't have a candy thermometer, you can use like a meat thermometer here too. And you just want to keep an eye on your temperature and make sure that it is at 325 degrees. And we've got just a little bit to go here. One tip here is make sure that you're not touching the bottom of the pan if you are using a meat thermometer. You want to go about halfway so that you get an accurate temperature from top to bottom. So we're almost there, but not quite. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I bread the chicken. So in a similar container to what I soak it in buttermilk, I have 2 cups of plain flour, and to that I add equal parts of salt and pepper, and I only use about 2/3 a teaspoon of each. It's the reason why the majority of our seasoning is already on the chicken. So you just want to add just a little bit to your flour just to give it something a little more interesting. Because we didn't use much salt in the seasoning, we just want to do that. So I like to fix the Tupperware lid on my Tupperware and mix the salt in real good with my flour. While our oil is coming up to temperature, this makes this part of the job a lot easier. So I like to fry in batches. So I'm only going to put about 4 pieces in because I have 8. So I'm going to put 4 pieces in my flour vessel here and seal it. And you can do this with a heavy paper bag too. My grandmama used to do hers with a paper sack from the grocery store. Although in this day and time, I don't know that I would necessarily do that. But you could if you were in a pinch. If you're on vacation or somewhere, just get a paper sack and you can do it. Usually the hot oil will fry anything out that would hurt you anyway. So we have a good nice coating on those chicken pieces, and I'm gonna just let it sit for just a second while I check my temperature of my oil one more time. And you might see me, I have this candy thermometer in here, but I also like to use my other thermometer too, just to kind of double check myself, because if your oil is not hot enough, your chicken will be greasy. If your oil is too hot, then you're gonna make a huge mess and you might burn the chicken, and you just really don't want to do that. Now once we put this chicken in, it's going to fry for about 5 minutes on each side. My temperature is still climbing, so we are just under about 320. So I'm going to bump my heat up just a tad, keeping an eye on it with my candy thermometer. And then I'm going to carefully place my chicken in. Now, the best rule of thumb that I can give you when frying chicken is don't overcrowd and be very patient, okay? See, I have a 6-quart Dutch oven here and 4 really big legs fitting nicely inside there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take the remainder of my chicken and put it in the flour. And you could certainly set up a breading station and dredge this if you wanted to. Actually, I am going to just do 3 pieces of that, and then I'll do the other 2 in a little bit. You could, but I find that I make less of a mess and I have a little more control here while I'm doing this. And what I have in here, I'm used to using Crisco. I'm not a paid advertiser for them, so if you're a store brand person, by all means use a store brand, that's fine. This is just what my Aunt Peggy and my mama and my grandmama always used, and it's kind of hard to break that habit. But the solid shortening is what you want to use. And I only use this for dumplings and for frying chicken. So I don't go through a lot. That's why I have a small can. Because I like to use butter whenever I make biscuits. All right, so my heat is at a good 325. So you want to make sure that you constantly keep an eye on your heat, because you don't want it to get too hot. You don't want it to cool off. So somewhere between medium and low is a good spot to keep your eye on whenever you're frying the chicken. And we're not doing a full fry here, so we're only going to fry on each side about 4 to 5 minutes until we start to see the browning happen along the edges. I can see the edges of the chicken. And one other good way to tell is if the chicken is still kind of stuck to the bottom, then it's not quite ready to turn. When it forms a good crust, it will actually pull away from the bottom of the pan because it's all solidified and will no longer be wet enough to stick to the bottom. So that's where the patience part comes in. Certainly if you turn it over and it doesn't stick, and it's okay to turn over, if it's not as brown as you want it to be, that's okay, you can turn it over one more time. The less you mess with it, the better. The better the crust will adhere, and the thicker the crust will be, and the crispier it will be. So if you can, try not to turn it early, but if you must, as long as it doesn't stick, you'll be fine. There's no hard and fast rule when it comes to that. So we're going to check them. And that one was ready, and you can already see that nice crust start to form. But here is where people who have tried to cook fried chicken usually have the problem. Like, this is as brown or just a little bit browner as I like mine to be. And see, I flipped him too soon. He didn't stick, but he's still kind of light right around the top. No worries, we can flip him again. It's not a problem. As long as it doesn't stick, there is no wrong way to do it. Some people don't have the patience to stand frying the chicken for the full 10 to 15 minutes that it needs. So a lot of times it'll get too done on the outside and it'll still be raw on the inside. We're going to remedy that by just doing simply 5 minutes on each side, getting a good browning and a good crispy crust on that batter, and then we're going to move it to a sheet pan where I have a rack and I have some paper towels underneath here. While we're cooking the rest of the chicken, it can drain. Then we will carefully take the paper towels out and we will finish this in the oven at 375 for about 20 to 25 minutes. Sometimes 30, just depending on your oven. So I'd say 20 to 30 minutes we'll finish it in there. So once this batch gets done, we'll take it out and drain it and finish the rest. And then we'll come back and we'll show them to you right before we put them in the oven. And then after that, we'll be back when they're completely done, and we'll bust one open and show you how beautiful and finished this chicken is. And it's a lot less stress and about half the time that it normally takes. So we'll be right back. All right, everybody, we are back. We have finished crisping up and browning our chicken. And as you can see, it all has a very nice, good crust on it. And we've allowed it to drain just a little bit on some paper towels. And what I have here is just another sheet pan fitted with a bacon rack. similar to the one I had before. I decided to take the rack off of this one and just let these drain on this pan so that I could easily transfer them here. My oven is preheated to 375 degrees. Now we're going to carefully, because this chicken is not done, okay? It's got a good, nice crust on the outside. So we want to carefully just transfer these over to our sheet pan that is fitted with the bacon rack. If you don't have a bacon rack, that's fine. You can fashion one out of tin foil and be fine. Just to kind of make little round rings of tin foil just to set the chicken on so that they're raised up off of the bottom of the pan so that they don't just sit and cook in their own grease or their own juices. And it really makes a difference because you have airflow all the way around the chicken pieces. So here is where people have trouble with, because you get fooled, see, by how good and done these look. But if I stuck that internal temperature or that internal meat thermometer inside, they would know it would not be done, nowhere near what they need it to be. In fact, when you pick them up with tongs, they're still kind of squishy. So this is why you have to be very careful when you fry chicken, because a lot of times they might look done on the outside, but they're not done on the inside. So therefore, people tend to just kind of stay away from it completely. However, this way will get you exactly the result that you want. That nice, crispy breading and good, moist chicken that's done all the way to the bone. So we're going to put this in a 375 degree oven for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'll probably set my timer and check it at 15 and see where we are. And then closer to the 20-minute mark, I'll stick my meat thermometer in and see where they are. Depending on how done you like them, chicken is usually done anywhere between 165 and 175 degrees. I usually like to err on the higher side, especially whenever I have soaked them in buttermilk. Sometimes if you cook them too well done, the chicken is dry. So I think by general rule, 165 is done for the chicken, but just as a precaution, I like to go a little bit higher. So I'll probably check them until they're 175, because I know I've soaked these in buttermilk, so I know they're gonna stay nice and tender. So we'll be back and show you that magic in about 20 or 30 minutes. Well, for me, not for you. Hey everybody, we are back, and our fried chicken has finished a 30-minute cook time at 375 degrees after we pan fried it. And y'all, it is perfect. I'm shooting on my own today, so we don't have much in the way of swapping between overhead and front. So you just have to deal with me lifting it up and showing it to you. Gosh, that smells like home. It is wonderful. That crispy batter is still on this chicken, and it's done all the way to the bone because I've checked it with my handy meat thermometer. So I'm going to break open one of these thighs and show you how perfect it is, and that crispy skin is still, like, let me hold up to my microphone so you can hear how nice and crispy it is. And we're gonna just open it up and show you, and it's still kind of hot. It's still really hot. And show you just how perfect and done it is on the inside. Y'all, this has got to be the most perfect method of fried chicken that I've ever found. So just like with our biscuit recipe and our pie crust and everything like that, we like to show you how to honor the traditions of traditional cooking, but also get you in the kitchen so that you can best cook these things and feel confident in the manner in which you do so. And simply searing this and getting that crust all nice and yummy and crispy on the outside in 5 minutes on each side is the way to go. 375 in the oven for 20 to 30 minutes more, depending on the temperature of your oven, and a good meat thermometer are all that's required to make perfect fried chicken every time. And you don't have to stress and worry about getting it too done on the outside and not done enough on the inside, because that's what scares people most times. So we hope that you will try our Southern fried chicken, made easy and made confidently in your kitchen too. As always, this recipe and all of our others can easily be found over at our website at thebutteredhome.com. We would love for you to visit us there and browse around. We have so much wonderful there to offer you. And if you're not already, be sure you check out our social channels at Facebook and Instagram. We cook live there from time to time and would love to have you join in with us in fellowship and love and laughter here in My Messy Kitchen. And as always, all of our videos can always be found over at YouTube. And ding that bell so that you can be notified whenever we drop videos just like this one. Y'all stay tuned. Next week we'll have an even better recipe that uses a similar cooking technique as this. It's going to be fried pork chops, but they are breaded in a special way, and I'm going to leave that as a surprise for you all. But we also sear those in a pan and then transfer them to the oven to finish their cook time for a more tender and completely cooked pork chop, bone in or out. So we hope that y'all will join us then, and until then, from the Buttered Home to your home, we love you guys. Bye.